Hi everyone, and welcome in my cave. Today I will be giving you insight in one of my latest projects, Are We Alone? So check it out. So one of the most important things to me is being organized in a project. As you can see, I grouped everything in some major groups. Let me just close them down for you. So you got the group acoustic instruments, the bass sounds, some noise, the synthesizers, percussions, vocals, FX, kick and bass, and the drop. And these groups almost come back every single time in each single project, but of course with different sounds. So let's start from the beginning. I turned off my master chain, so this will be like the plain sound of the track, and I would suggest starting from the beginning, from the top, which is the acoustic group. And yeah, in this project it contains just 5 layers. It's mainly some piano sounds, strings, and a choir to thicken it up in the drop. So start off the first piano, which are just plain chords. So it's the Contact Galaxy Steinway. A fun fact, the Galaxy Steinway is a sample pack which is recorded like 10 minutes drive from my studio in the Galaxy Studios here in Mol, where I live. It's a really great sample pack. I use either the Galaxy Steinway or the Grandeur from Native Instruments. So let me just turn off all the processing of this first one. So this is basically like the most common piano sound you will ever experience. There is just a little bit of reverb on it. Yeah, I just use 2 buses to process my reverb and my delay. So this will be nearly the only reverb and only delay you will see in my projects. But we will come to that later on. So, the piano. The first processing unit is the OTT, of course, one of my favorite plugins. You will see this one really often. It's used quite heavily, I see. So, the Greg Wells Piano Centric. This is a plugin which I spotted in the Mercury bundle from Waves, and I'm using this on all kinds of sounds like synths, especially percussive synths. So, next up is an equalizer, just to trim the low end and boost the high end. That's just a slight mid-tip, but this is to make it work better with the vocals, which are also on this spot. So I'm just making some place for the other elements there. A VCA compressor. It's not used quite heavily. It has a reduction of -3 dB. And this filter, I think this one is okay, yeah. It's just an FX filter, so nothing special about this one. The second piano, more or less the same processing. This one is the Grandeur, as I already told. Again, the OTT. Oh, so here you can see like the mid boost to take it over from the chords, and this is the arpeggio piano. It's just playing the chords, so nothing special going on here in my opinion. And again, the Greg Wells Piano Centric. Also the filter, I think it's used on the same place. Then some strings, which are also often used in my tracks. And I either use the cinematic strings library or the where are they? Oh, the string ensemble. And of course with quite heavily EQ, because I really love the sparkling high end of those strings, and I think it really gives some air in the track, which makes it stand out at some moments. The choirs are just plain choirs. I haven't even used any processing on it. And another one here. So the last one is the native contact choir A, and the first choir is an expansion, I think, is the Voxus virtual choir. It's one I use quite often because it has a really thick and epic sound. So the main reason I group everything is that I can use some bus processing, and in case you haven't noticed, I use a lot of analog gear in here, and it would be like impossible to have an EQ on each single track. So what I do is I group them into the main pieces like the acoustics, and I use an outboard compressor, which is the Tomionic Phoenix. It's the Mastering Plus version. It's just a really great compressor. It adds some smoothness, a little bit of saturation. So yeah, it also does like a reduction of -3 dB on the loudest part. So that would be like this group. So yeah, -3 dB. The second one, yeah, you can see it's the Panzer 5 and 6. But the Panzer is like a modular rack. I will include a small video in here so you can see what it actually is. And it's loaded with, at the top, an SSL EQ strip, and at the bottom, the Elysia Empressor 500 module. So what I did is just EQing the whole group to make it stand out and mix it a little bit better. Let me just take a look what I'm doing in here. So 5 and 6. So I'm cutting a little bit of the lows, adding a little bit of the mids around 1 kilohertz, and adding some sparkling highs at the 16K. So that's what I did there. And here is my sidechain compressor, which is linked to the upper trigger, sidechain trigger link. So it's just a percussive sound. Let me show it to you. So that's it, and that one is triggering the sidechain compressor. Next up, the bass sounds. One of my favorite. So these are the bass sounds which I use in the breaks and not in the drop. The drop and the drop bass and the kick are in one group due to some processing I had to do. Normally I do split them up in a bass group and a solely kick group. So the bass one, this is how I make my sub basses. It's called the Operator. It's a native Ableton instrument, and I think the reason I use it is because it's really clean, and you can add some harmonies on the sine. So you can see this one is the plain sine, I think the second harmony, third harmony, etc. So that one is just playing the chords. So next up is the bass from my Virus, and I used the top one, which is the Virus A for this one. It has like the 90s octave bass sound. It's just a saw sound, but the Virus has really good stereo spread tool. And actually I use a plugin to control my viruses out there, so I can also automate them. You can see I used some automation in here. This is the cutoff of the bass. So as you can hear, it's a really wide and thick bass sound, which I love, and I can only make it with the Virus for some reason. So next one is a Hoover bass. Don't shoot me, it's in stereo, it's a sub. Please don't kill me. And at the bass group I just used some sidechain compression, nothing else. That will be it, plain and simple. So for the noise sounds I just used some Cashmere samples, especially the exhausts. For this track I also used some Cried samples. It's from the Vangan specs. So as you can see, nothing special going on here. I'm just cutting off the lows. this might be a sweep up. And once again, it's from the Cashmere pack. I didn't even do any processing on this. Funny. I honestly have no clue where this effect is coming from, but oh yeah, it's a Vengeance effect. A riser I made myself. It's also really easy. So the only automation going on in here is like the MIDI pitch bend. Another sweep up. I think this is a small effect. And some crowd clapping. And once again, nothing special going on in here in the noise group. It's just used to spice the sounds a bit up, giving a bit more energy. So also this one is sidechain compressed. But the next one, the synths. And synths is a really important group because these are responsible for every break. These are responsible to fill up the drops with some chord sounds, some arpeggiators. So let's just dive into the first one. As you can see, a lot of virus sounds are used in here. So the super sauce. It's mainly used in the drop or where I use the melody to support it. It's an afterbeat effect. And my super sauce, I use either Serum, my viruses, or Silent for this one. And in this case, I use Silent. So I just renamed my own preset. By the way, I always make my own presets, so feel free to copy this one. Hey. And of course, the OTT, it's back. Some EQing and some filtering. So this is the second layer of super sauce. I think this one is playing the melody as well, joined with some chords on the lows. And once again, please don't shoot me for these incredible high boosts. So a sound I made with my Virus C. So as you can hear, it's a really dirty sound, and I think they blend really well if you play those three together. So next up is another Virus synth I made. This one, the 1/8 plug. So this is actually how I made the sound. It's not an audio plugin, it's just controlling the viruses out there. So if you have a virus, make sure to use this plugin. It's from Mystery Islands. It's one of my favorites, and you can recall the synths within any project, so it's really useful. Then another layer with my Virus B. So I wanted some kind of bells, but also really synthetic, and I think this is exactly what I needed to have. And it's a counter melody of the piano. Wait, let me just play them together. So this one is going from up to down, and the piano is going from down to up. I think it was a cool addition to the track. It's not really present in the final mix, but if I just left it out, I was feeling something was missing, and this made a difference. Another virus synth, who've guessed it. It's a really soft pad to fill up the bridge sounds. So it's just right after the first drop, this part. My virus DI2. So these are just playing the chords, and they add up really nice together. Yeah, I'm not joking, this one is made from the standard silent ARP 303 sound. And I think this one was just what I needed. I think I removed some automation from here, from the velocity and the mod wheel. I think originally there was some automation in here as well. I might have edited a little bit, but not that much. It just did what it had to do, so why would I try to make something different or something from scratch? I don't know. So my Moog sound. Oh, I also use for my Moog in there a control plugin. It's supplied by Moog itself, and it looks like the Moog. And it's playing exactly the same melody as the first one. So then we got an arpeggiator, which is made by Falcon, and it's also one of my favorite plugins. I do use the presets from them because it's a really complex synthesizer, and I don't find the time to create each single sound in there from scratch. So I often use just the presets. They're really well made. There are some really good sample preset packs in there as well. And a second layer of Falcon, which is another preset. So this is like the synth group and the most important one of them all. Let me just play them all together. And these go also to the Panzer. It has 10 slots in total, so I used 7 and 8 for this one. And it sounds without like this. So I just added some high ends, perhaps a little bit of mids as well, and especially the high ends from the SSL EQ. They give sparkling high, and the mids are more like a really warm mid sound. It really makes it stand out. So I just love my SSL. By the way, there are really good SSL plugins from either Waves and Universal Audio. Just grab one. So before I owned the real SSL stuff, I used just this plugin. I have a UAD2 satellite to run the UAD plugins. But another really good plugin, which is a really good emulation of the SSL, is the... Where is it? The Mix Hub from CLA. So yeah, this is basically the same channel strip. Definitely check this one out if you don't have access to the real deal, because it's already really close and really well made. So, it's percussion time. Actually, nothing special is going on in here, just a plain clap sound. An OTT, some equalizing, then just a ride sound, but I did something special with the ride. I made it rise all the way, all the bar long. It made some more movement in the track. If I didn't do it, it just felt a little bit too plain to me. So next up, an old school crash. But as you can see, they're almost all the Cashmere samples. I really love his packs, and I think I blend them all together, especially the second and the third. Then I have another clap. A tom sound. But I pitched it up with like 11 semitones. Next up is a closed hi-hat, and also here, this is basically the same what I did with the ride to make it, to give it a little bit more movement. I didn't play with the velocity at all, but I did play with the height of the hi-hat. So this gives a lot more energy. It makes a more movable sound, and also a little bit more organic, rather than playing it the 116 notes all at the same height. Then an afterbeats open hi-hat. Another snare. And this is a snare I sampled myself. I once had here a TR-909, and I just pulled out all the snare sounds I could. I made a small sample pack for myself, and that's one of the samples which are in it. Then a second snare for the build-up. Just a Cashmere snare again. So this is the percussion layer, and on top of the percussion I used my API 2500. They're really good plugins. Also before I had the real one, I used the Waves plugin. Wait, let me just recreate the settings for you guys so you can see what I did there. So this is how it sounds with the compressor. I just love the original a little bit better. It makes it all a little bit smoother, more organical. And to me it sounds much more fatter than the Waves plugin. But still, the Waves plugin is a really good emulation. One of the most important stuff of the whole track are the vocals, and it's my voice. It's just me. So you can see I used a lot of processing. This might be one of the only cases I used an external reverb, external delay, but it's combined with the delay I use in my send buses. So let's just break this one down, how I did it and how I recorded it. So I got a vocal booth in there. I use also this microphone. It's a Blue Kiwi. It sounds amazing, and I use it on every single recording. I have two of these, and I have a really good piano downstairs, and I often record my piano just like I did in Fastlane or some other tracks of mine. Let me just turn off all the processing in there. We'll come back to this later on. And I might be exposing a little trick I often use. So the original vocal was recorded 5 semitones below the original, because I wanted to have like the old school pitched up vocal vibe, which also Galantis uses quite often.
Are we alone, dancing together?
So let's just turn this one off. And let me pitch it up 5 semitones.
Are we alone, dancing together?
So next up is a little Alter Boy. It's one of my favorite plugins. It has a really good distortion module, and the formants are also used quite often. It's like
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky? We will make it forever.
But Little Altar Boy has a really strange artifact, and that is that it can't keep left and right properly in sync. So what I use is just a utility to select only the left channel and to go further on in the chain with a mono signal, because Ableton does not have mono tracks at all, which is quite strange to me. So in the cue, to cut off the lows and just give a small dip in the low mids.
Are we alone?
So this is really close to the original vocal already. Then the choral, and this is one of my secrets, because I used it to give like a build-up effect. Wait, let me just show it in here. It has an automation going on. So it has a really fucked up effect, and I just really dig it. Then the next layer is the same vocal with the same kind of processing except of the choral, but bent hard to the left and one bent hard to the right.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky? We will make it forever.
Nothing special going on here. Then we go to the harmony, and the harmony isn't really sung. It has been repitched note by note, because I was too lazy recording it again and auto-tuning myself. So this one was just a bit faster, and it gives a more computerish feeling to the track.
Are we alone, dancing together,
Touching the sky, we will make it forever. Are we alone, with you on adventure, touching the stars, so it...
And second harmony.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky?
We will make it forever. Are we alone, with you on adventure, touching the stars, so it feels like it...
Oh, as you probably already noticed, I used the left for the first harmony and the right for the second harmony. So I always record at least 3 takes, just to have a uniqueness in it. Then the octave, which I just pitched up by 12 semitones, but it's already 5 semitones higher, so it's 17 in total. This one is the same as the main. So
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky? We will make it forever.
so yeah, this is like the whole build up of the vocal.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky? We will make it forever.
Then I have a vocoder sound, which is quite familiar in the track.
Are we alone?
And it's just made with the standard Ableton vocoder and silent. It's linked to a simple silent little supersaw. So that will be it. See, I do have some ad-libs. Do I want to show them you? Yeah. It's terrible. So then we need some processing on this group of vocals, because it would just make no sense doing it all separately. You want to see it as one major vocal, and that's why I use it all the processing on my bus. So first of all, the OTT, it's like cranked really hard to 58%. I'll just give you an example, pre and post.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky? We will.
So the big budge.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky?
So it has, I basically never used this plugin, but it felt really well on this kind of vocal. It makes it more vintage, and that's exactly what I needed. So the de-esser.
Are we alone, dancing together?
There weren't really harsh tones in here, but I used it on every single vocal I ever process, so it should be in every single vocal chain. Then again, you can kill me because I did an incredibly high boost at the high end.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky with...
Then some echo.
Are we alone, dancing together?
Oh, but the echo is used as an effect on the bridge.
On this globe, now and never.
So just a filter for the build-up effects. I have no clue why I used a sidechain compressor in here, because there is like literally no vocal in the... Oh wait, here it is. So forget what I just said. Then the vocal is linked to my SSL equalizer on slot 3 and 4, and basically I just did basically nothing. It was just adding a little bit of high end, a little bit of mids, boosting the high lows also. So it's not making a huge amount of difference in this one.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky, we will make it forever.
And then of course with the reverb and delay on it.
Are we alone, dancing together, touching the sky, we will make it forever.
And then we go to the FX. It's just sub-impact. Literally nothing is done with this one. It's just there, broad and balanced with the volume. I got a second type of impact. And especially in the build-up, I often remove all the low ends, but I still wanted to have an impact sound. And yeah, that's why I used the auto filter. Then an FX pad. So this one got a separate reverb just to... I didn't feel like the main reverb I'm using was doing the job well on this one. So I chose the Valhalla Room. It's one of my favorite reverbs, but recently there is a new one and it's called Raum. I think I got this one for free on Christmas. It was a Christmas sale, and this is basically my go-to reverb if I'm not in my studio anymore. So something more, a sub drop, an FX fill. They're just plain samples. I did use an echo on this one and a lot of reverb from the bus. Also note, I always use a ping pong reverb because I really love the stereo image of it. It makes the track so much wider and it's still mono compatible. So next up is the kick and the bass. So this is basically the reason why I wanted it to have it in one group. It went through the SSL EQs and as well as the Elysia compressor, and there I can really squish these sounds together as it is one major chunk of energy. So it's made in two different parts. Of course the kick, of course the bass. And the bass has a sub layer, which is also made with the operator. Also again, same principle, second and third harmony. And yes, it's stereo made again. But what's really special on the operator's spread sound, it starts mono and it spreads out to stereo. So all the beginning of the sound is still mono and goes wide every single time it opens up and gets triggered every single kick. So I did a lot of processing on the sub layer. I don't often use a lot of plugins on the sub because I really want to have it clean. But in this case, I wanted to have a certain vibe in it, which I couldn't get with just the synthesis alone. So this one was on sale as well. I think I got this one for free from Plugin Alliance. It's just a bass harmonizing tool. It spices it all up. Wait, let me just show what it does to you. So I really solved it. I made a bass mono until 120 Hz, but you will see in my master chain that everything below 120 Hz will be mono. So yeah, the BX subfilter. So if you're checking this tutorial out with a subwoofer, you will definitely notice a difference. It's mainly for the subwoofers only. I added some erosion to give like a high-end sparkle noisish sound. But the noise didn't really stand out to me, so I added some distortion, which from plugin, which I also got for free because of a sale, of course. And one of the most useless EQs I've ever seen in my whole life. It has a boost of 0.37 decibels. And then I use the auto panner often as a sidechain tool. It just works out and I'm satisfied with it. So for the bass plug, I just used a Percussion sample. You can see it in here. Also the sidechain trick and an EQ to cut off the low end because I don't want to have anything colliding with my sub sound. Same applies to the second bass plug. Then there is like a bass synth. It should be in the synth group, but as it's playing exactly the same as bass, I prefer to have it here and have it processed all together. So that will be it for the drop bass. Then again, the kick. Yeah, I've got 3 kick layers. It has a body, it has a top, and it has another top. So the top sample. As you can see, I also cut the lows in here. So then the second top kick. And the kick's body. Then, just to make sure that the samples do not contain any stereo information, I just selected the left channel only. I think this one is much more safe than making it mono, because if you make something mono, you will already have the phase cancellation brought to mono. So I'm just selecting the left track, so I'm sure I will just get the sound as it's supposed to be. And just a small EQ correction. So yeah, that's it. Nothing special going on in here. So the last major element is the drop. And it has a lot of processing. Let me just turn off everything. Why isn't there a faster way to turn things off? Oh, I'm just leaving the gate on because there was some analog synths used, some plugins which generate some noise. I'm just cutting it off with this, so don't mind this. This isn't doing anything else to the sound. So, the first layer. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's a drop layer, the main layer, and it's helped with the second layer. And the third layer. And once again, this comes straight out of my own preset pack I often use. These are like my signature sounds, especially for silent. One of the best plugins from Ableton is the Wavetable synth. It came out with the last version, and I'm really in love, but only for this particular sound. It has a really cool noise module. Wait, let me just turn it off. So it's like crossing between a saw and a square. These are the two oscillators used. And the unison module is amazing. I always use the noise just to give it like also that little bit more energy. Then the fifth layer. That's my Virus TI2 standing next to me on my desk here. So this is the harmony layer of the drop. Also, nothing really special is going on. I use the internal distortion module from Silent One. So this one is another harmony. And I think this might be the one time I used Nexus in this track. That's just like a really good preset to carry the leads of this one. And then the last layer, which is also playing the melody combined with some chords. And something you might not have expected is noise, but it's really percussive. It's just made in silent, so it's just a noise wavetable, one voice, nothing else. But as you can see, I made the decay really short, which made it really percussive, and as it's noise, it just adds a little bit more detail to every note the melody plays. And then I sampled my whole layer, my whole drop layer, and put it in reverse here. And I use some Valhalla Room to fatten it up. And then just before the drop kicks in or ends, I just use another super saw. So that's it. So now it's really sounding plain, harsh, and I want to have like one lead and not a collection of different layers. So what I do is just compressing the shit out of them with the ODT. Oh, it's only 35%. I've been gentle today. But what's something really special about the ODT is the attack time. And it makes it cut in so much harder when I turn it on. Wait. And then again, the Greg Wells piano-centric. It shouldn't be used here, but it worked perfectly just to give a little bit more high end to the highs. Yeah. And then another trick I often use is the Maserati. I use the GTI. It's not made for synthesizers at all. It's made for guitars, electric guitars in special. But I love to use to crank it up because it has a really nice distortion and compression in it. And I don't know another way to recreate the sound. So next up is my EL8X. It's from Empirical Labs and it's commonly known as the Distressor. There are plugins from it, but I don't have them. I just use this ones. I use a 2:1 compression ratio, and I think the maximum reduction I'm using on the leads might be -7 dB. Yeah, the exact time I can't tell in milliseconds, but I used the knob at 4. So the next one is something you might not expect. Okay. Well, amp overheated. So I'm using a Nucleus, and it comes with 2 built-in SSL preamps. And what I do, I just use them to give some more color to my lead sounds. So it's just a lead sound going from the converter through the mic preamp, going back into the converter, going to my DAW. I'm not sure if you can hear the difference, but when I turn it on and off, especially in a main mix, I can clearly tell that it's on or off. So next up is the utility. I just widen it up, nothing else is done here. Then the Panzer 1.2, I did boost the highs a little bit, I did boost the mids a little bit, and I just cut the lows a little bit. So basically the same as with the EQ, but it adds up. And then the outer filter to give like the smooth transition when we're going out of the drop. And the sidechain compressor, and that will be it. So you might also have noticed that I really try to max out all the levels going in and out of my converters. It just gives me the most fidelity and the least noise. So that's the only reason I'm doing it. So you're still left with the reverb buses. So for the last part, I'm going to show you the reverb bus. It's the Lexicon 960L I use. It's a hardware reverb. So yeah, everything is going in there. It's being processed. Let me just look up some settings I used for this one, so you can try to recreate it with your own plugins like Valhalla Room or the ROM from Native Instruments. So basically it has a pre-delay of approximately 30 milliseconds. It has a decay time of 3.6 seconds. So that might be all you need to know to recreate more something alike. The delay, as already said, I really love to use the ping pong effect. Basically, I always use a 1/8 or 1/4 depending on the track. And something I really love to do is to cut the highs and the lows of the delay to give it a more vintage feel. And so the highs can always cut through the mix. I also sidechain it. And the same applies to the reverb. So when I just play it back. So we moved on to my mastering chain. And my mastering chain ain't something special. I mean, you have probably seen tons of master chains already in your life. This is just what I always use. It works for my style of music, it works for my mixing, and hey, yeah, just let's start. The first one is the Avalon AD 2022. It is also a preamp, so I abuse it just like my SSL preamp in here. It gives some warmth, it adds some thickness as well. So as the SSL really adds up in highs, that one really adds up in warmth and the mids. So you can also see the output is -2 dB. This is like the maximum I can get out of it before clipping. It's also, as I use the pads, I'm also oversteering it a little bit, so it also gives that analog saturation, which I really love. So the next plugin is my BX Digital version 3. Yeah. So it has a mono section and a stereo section. So yeah, it just added some low mids just to pump up the boominess of the track, because I mixed really clean and I felt something was missing. But everything was missing in balance, so I can just pull it straight in the mastering, and then it's already solved, and I don't have to redo all the different groups, all the different tracks. It really saves some time. So what I'm doing here, just giving a boost at 300 Hz, 830 Hz, and for the stereo I'm basically doing more or less the same. I did decrease the gain just to stay below the 0 dB limit as I'm boosting some stuff in here. So I did use the mono maker. It's cut out, as I already said, about 111 Hz, 120, just be around that and you will always be fine. So next up is the Manly Massive Passive. It's an analog equalizer, it's amazing to do mastering, and actually I misused it as usual. I only boost some stuff with it. It has a low boost, it has a low mid boost, it has a high mid boost, and it has a high boost. So I'm just creating this kind of curve, and it just really works out in this track. So next up is my Elysia Alpha compressor. This one is a beast. It's just a beast. Let me just show you the difference. Like, it pushes everything so well together, and it still preserves all the high-end peaks and all the transients, and it's just perfect. It's really just perfect. So next up, guess it or not, it's the OTT. This one is really gently used. It's at 14%. So the next one is the EQ Channel 8. One thing what's quite important when using it in the master section, it's like use the oversampling. I really felt it was missing some low end, and I didn't want to push the Manly any further than I'm already doing, so I would rather use another EQ just to pull it straight. And then the final stage, which might be one of the most important plugins I have, is the Precision Maximizer. Yeah, I just turned down the output because I was clipping on my recording device in here. So it's normally on 0.1. So for now, I'm just using -8 dB. And you can see I'm just cranking up the input. I use the shape tool, just use the internal limiter, and I do it on 3 bands instead of 1. So this is it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, drop it down there in the comments. I will try to answer them all as soon as possible. And oh, by the way, I almost forgot. I'm releasing the Different World remix the 20th of June. So definitely make sure you are there. See you guys.